Down for the Count with Brandon Medina and Dan Cialana.
Yeah. It is Down for the Count, your ESPN San Antonio wrestling show. I'm Dangerous Dan Cialana, not joined by my tag team partner, Brandon Big Poppy Medina. I haven't thought of a clever reason to say why he's gone. Maybe, I don't know. I always say wellness policy violation.
I mean, that's an easy one. I mean, yeah, we got to get a little bit more creative on that.
New one. We sent him back to the performance center for more training.
Yeah, demoted. Well, we can't say demoted to NXT because that's not really demoted.
Freshen up.
Yeah, go back to the performance center for some extra training. Yeah,
tune up. All right, that voice you hear, if you're not watching on Facebook or YouTube or Twitch or OnlyFans or wherever else we're at, is Mike Mayer from the Off the Mic Wrestling Podcast. Mike, thanks for joining us tonight on Down for the Count.
Always down to go to the deep in the heart of Texas and from LA, from California. Always great to be on with you, man. Appreciate the invite.
Definitely. Now, we will get into Hell in a Cell last week, and of course, we'll get into the aftermath of Hell in a Cell, Monday Night Raw. Talk a little AEW probably too. Probably. But first, Mike, I want to talk to you about a story that you sent me that's been kind of angering some people on the internet.
Yeah.
And there's a
angering
comedian,
is putting it delicately.
Well, there's a comedian named Kenise Mobley, and she's I guess a comedy writer. God bless her. That's cool. And she actually was on a podcast. It was actually from a few weeks ago, but it just today recently started to get some kind of traction here. She was on a podcast called Asian Not Asian. And the reason why one reason she was on that podcast was to talk about her new job at a company you may have heard of called World Wrestling Entertainment. You ever heard of this company there, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty big deal. It's only the biggest professional wrestling promotion in the world. So
exactly.
Pretty big, kind of a big deal. Yeah.
Now, she got a new job there, and that's cool. Hey, a lot of us would love to work for WWE.
Absolutely.
It's been on my bucket list to work for WWE sometime in my life, even if it's just for like a day, just so I can say that I got a paycheck from WWE. And Janice, I'm sorry.
Third time's the charm. Yeah.
This individual got a job at WWE and talked about her new job and upset some people who heard about it. And let's take a listen, and we'll try to just think about why she upset people with talking about her new job at WWE.
I don't know enough about it. I truly have not started yet, so I don't know enough about it. And if they hear this, I'm really hoping they don't revoke my offer, but I truly know next to nothing about it. I'm having people over tomorrow if you want to
watch
to watch some wrestling.
That's so funny, dude.
Yeah, I saw last week's match wrestle.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
who's in right? Do you know who's popular right now?
So I am on the Monday Night Raw team.
That's the big one, right? I think.
So there's Monday Night Raw and Friday Night SmackDown.
Okay.
And the people I know that are on it are Bobby I mean, his name is either Bobby Ashley or Bobby Lashley, and I really should know that. He's like this giant black guy, and he and the people who are part of his crew, I know that they called, or at least as of last year, they called themselves the Hurt Business.
Hurt Business?
The Hurt Business. Right?
Wow.
Oh boy.
That sounds like my mom trying to
so
describe this
much
show to friends. So, what does your son do? Oh, well, he talks about that Raw, I think, with the Bobby Ashley and the Hurt on the wrestling match show.
There's the red ropes and the screens around
and Mike.
They call it the Thunder Stadium, the Thunder Dome.
Right.
I don't know. Oh man,
maybe it has something to do with Tina Turner. I don't know. That's an old reference right there. Now, let me just be very clear here. I'm not upset with this lady, Kenise Mobley, this comedian, this comedy writer.
Neither am I.
Entertainment jobs are hard to come by. And if she got an entertainment job with a big company, God bless her. She didn't do anything wrong. There's a lot of situations where people who are not qualified for jobs get really important jobs. It's true. Believe me, it's true. It happens. All right. So I'm not mad at her. And I don't think any wrestling fan should be harassing Kenise Mobley on Twitter saying you're ruining wrestling. All she did was take a job. But Mike, could you explain why you think people are upset with the comments that Kenise Mobley, new writer for Monday Night Raw, said on this podcast, Asian Not Asian? Why do you think people are upset?
Well, okay, so it goes back. I think the last time I was on here, we talked specifically about Monday Night Raw and how bad that product is and how bad the show is. And it's gotten better since a lot. I mean, there's been some things, but there's a lot of redundancy and but there's also just a lot of things that don't make any sense. So when you got one of your new writers going on a podcast and they don't even know who the WWE freaking champion is and they have no idea what they're writing for, that is just, it's embarrassing. I don't blame Kenise Mobley. She's getting paid. Like, I don't blame her for taking that job. She's not the one doing the hiring. But if you're hiring a writer for a wrestling show that knows nothing about your product, what the hell are you doing? Like, that sends the completely wrong message, and it kind of leads into this whole narrative that we've been having. This has been a problem with Raw for a long time. Like, this show has not been good consistently. And then you compare it to NXT and SmackDown and all the stuff that's going on those shows. And in some ways, SmackDown is really being elevated by Roman Reigns and everything surrounding that, because that's just been so good ever since he came back at SummerSlam last year. But man, the Raw product is redundant. Some of the segments don't make any sense. Some of the segments are awful. And then on top of it, we find out that they have hired a writer who has no idea what she is writing for. That's got to be like a number one job requirement for anything. It's like if you go into like accounting or you go into anything, you got to know what the hell you're doing. Like, if you don't know what the hell you're doing, that's on the people who are hiring you. That's not on Kenise Mobley. So I'm with you completely. Exactly. I'm not mad at her at all. Like, this is ridiculous, and it's completely on WWE, because it's like, if you want to create a better product, you want to have people who obviously have an investment and an emotional attachment to wrestling, because then they're obviously going to contribute some good ideas to your show and your product.
And I have mixed feelings here, because I'm always afraid to turn into an old man. I just turned 41, and I'm afraid to turn into one of those old guys who spits all over his computer when he talks. And also just thinks everything was better back in the old days, because they weren't better back in the old days. And I don't want to. I'm not trying to be mean. I don't want to turn into Jim Cornette, who thinks.
Oh God, I'm not going to go there, man. Like, because if we're going into Jim Cornette territory, like that's a huge problem, because I honestly
hasn't been good since 1974.
I honestly don't know if that guy likes anything. Seriously,
exactly.
It seems like he hates just everything in the wrestling business.
All I like is my Rat, George the Rat. Died. No, I don't, because I don't want to be one of those old guys who's like, well, back when in the 80s wrestling was great and but it kind of was. I mean, here's the thing. Yeah, there was some trash wrestling back then too, but my God, it wasn't this scripted TV show type thing. And I was thinking about this today, and I remember last year I got to interview Jimmy Hart, and I got to ask him about a classic moment from my childhood watching wrestling, when he and he set up Hulk Hogan to be demolished by the Canadian earthquake on the Brother Love show. And that's one of the greatest, most dramatic wrestling moments of the last 30 years, I think. And Jimmy Hart told me, he said that whole thing was improv. They had a general idea of what they're going to do, but then the dialogue was all improv. And we still remember this moment 30 years later.
Right.
Basically, all the great wrestling moments I grew up with were improv.
Organic. Yeah, it's all about organic nature. And the problem is, like, I know you're referencing that, and I think that's what a lot of people are appreciating about AEW is that for the most part, these guys are allowed to go out there. I mean, obviously things are planned and they go into things, but like the promos and the stuff that you hear on the air, they give them creative freedom. That's why Jon Moxley went there. That's why Chris Jericho went there, because they were tired of being stuck in a system, and this has been going on for years. So it's not just a Raw thing, but they were tired. Like Jon Moxley even said it after he left. Like he was getting handed stuff by writers and producers that he thought was crap. Like he thought it was garbage. And he was like, man, you really want me to say this on air?
And literally handed, because, you know, kind of as a shorthand way, people would say, oh, wrestling is scripted. And we didn't,
I hate the F word, by the way. I hate the F word.
The word scripted?
Well, I mean, I hate the F word fake.
Oh, the F word, yeah.
I hate that word when associated as, and I know a bunch of wrestling fans hate that association.
Yeah.
It is not fake. You can say scripted, you can say choreographed, just do not say fake to me. I think it's like a bad word in the wrestling industry.
No, and I understand.
Fans don't want to, that any fans don't want to hear. So
exactly,
like choreographed or staged, any other variation I'm okay with, but fake, don't ever use that around me. Like
I like to say that wrestling is primarily entertainment.
Yeah, exactly. Sports entertainment.
Entertainment. We're not very sports entertained lately, but you know, but the word scripted though, we used to say, oh, it's scripted, but we didn't actually used to mean that you would actually be handed a paper script. And now that's actually what happens. But now if you look at AEW promos, like you said, or New Japan promos, they sound more natural. They talk to the wrestlers after the match, and just like any other sports league, you know, sometimes they're breathing heavy because they just got out of a match and maybe they're a little bit distracted and they stutter a little bit. It's not as polished and it feels real. But the question I want to ask you, Mike, is it time for me to let go? I'm getting to middle age these days, and there's things I have to let go. Do I need to finally let go of the idea that WWE is going to return to this glorious prior state of more organic feeling wrestling? Do I just need to embrace that they are an entertainment company and Vince McMahon thinks he's making movies? Do I just need to accept that new reality and move on with my life?
I mean, it's hard not to believe that, because we've been holding out hope for this for years now, haven't we? Like, we've been holding out hope that it would kind of return back to that era. Like, even this AEW push and this like resurgence, and yes, obviously the pandemic last year kind of like halted, but AEW's back on the rise. It just doesn't seem to be like registering to the point, oh, this is a really big threat. Even ticket sales, AEW is in some markets outdrawing WWE. But still, like, WWE is this entertainment empire, and like they've created two mega movie stars in The Rock and John Cena, who have gone on out of the company to become even bigger stars than they already are. So it's just like, it's really hard for me to be convinced that this is going to go completely back. The most organic WWE ever felt was during that rain delay at WrestleMania. That was the most organic, old school WWE feel that you could get, and it might have been the best part of WrestleMania. Like, for 30 minutes they had to stall and just figure out how the hell they were going to get through this on live television with weather not cooperating with them. And I thought maybe that would actually change the course and direction of this and maybe tilt it. But as long as Vince McMahon is in control and in power, I just don't see any changes really coming, because he seems to think that what it worked for him when WWE was in its heyday in the 90s, really on the rise, like towards the Attitude Era, and like they were, I mean, there was a little halt there in the middle of the 90s, but also obviously with the Hulk Hogan in the 80s and stuff. It's just like that Attitude Era. he thinks that stuff is still going to work, or like going back to that where it was all family oriented and just trying to cater to that audience. And like, that's not going to work. And the goofy stuff and the comedic stuff, it just doesn't work in 2021. And you've got a different audience that's, like you see in AEW, they're more interested in what's going on in the matches in pro wrestling, not necessarily the entertainment aspect. That's why NXT becomes so popular. So like, my long-winded point is, I mean, you're probably, I'm not going to say you're wasting your time, or like, I wouldn't say give up hope, but as long as Vince McMahon's running this company, at least on the main roster, I'm not going to be convinced that anything's going to change, because he's just resistant and he's very stubborn to anything that's going to alter what he thinks is going to work.
Now, Mike, you mentioned that the last thing we remember in WWE feeling very real was that very real rain delay that we had at WrestleMania. That I think it delayed WrestleMania for about 30 minutes. And a couple weeks ago, when Brandon and I got to talk to Drew McIntyre, we actually asked him about
cool. I saw that. Yeah.
The delay. Let's take a listen. Now, this year at WrestleMania, we finally had fans back in April. So, but take us back to the moment. So the whole roster at the beginning of the pay-per-view comes out, and everybody's so happy to be there. We sing "America the Beautiful." You're getting ready to go beyond with Bobby Lashley, and then you find out there's a weather delay. What's going through Drew McIntyre's head when you're like, oh my God, like now there's another impediment in my path?
Are you freaking kidding me? So it's going through my head. Is it me? Am I a jinx? Every time I fight for the title, something goes wrong. Like last year at WrestleMania, I was fighting for the title. There's a worldwide pandemic. This year, I'm fighting for the title, and we're going to get rained out. So yeah, I was a bit angry, a bit disappointed. My adrenaline was at an all-time high. I'd taken my pre-workout, so I was caffeinated on top of all that adrenaline. I was the first one back after America the Beautiful and got the news, so the whole roster's passing me, giving me the fist bumps, telling me, good luck, big man, you've earned this moment, start the show right, but I know there's a delay. So I'm like, yeah, cool. Like really frustrated in that moment. And then during that 40 minutes, we were doing some cool stuff. I got to see how amazing, our staff is, not just on screen, but off screen, keeping things together, keeping the entertainment going during that delay throughout WrestleMania, our biggest show of the year. I was grabbed and told, Lashley and MVP are talking over there, go crush that interview. I went, okie dokie. Got straight in on the interview. We got face to face. And if MVP wasn't there, the tension was so high for real. And basically Lashley and I would have ended up fist fighting if MVP didn't take him away. It was getting real tense. And when I finally got in front of the fans, it was so worth it. It was such an amazing moment.
So that was a great moment. You remember that
right.
WrestleMania?
Yeah,
because
that felt like a legitimate like UFC type deal where guys are going face to face. Like that was like, you don't see that in the modern WWE where two guys get in each other's face and it feels like, we love I don't know if I could speak for you, Dan. I love a good pull apart. I love a good pull apart brawl.
You like a good pull out, huh?
Yeah. Like, yeah. I wouldn't put it that way, but but
it's not a very effective method.
Yeah, but when they do those segments, like when they're setting up big matches and they need the whole roster to like, I love those. But you very rarely get a segment like, and to Drew's point there, and he said it so well that like the adrenaline was so there and it was real emotion. Like they were jacked because that's the first match in front of fans. Good God.
You've been waiting over a year, and that was Drew McIntyre, the person and the wrestler. And that's the thing. That's the beauty. That's one thing I love about wrestling, because it's like the character and the person are so intertwined. If you went to WrestleMania next year and you went to the Access and got to meet wrestlers, get autographs, pictures, you wouldn't say, hey, Dan and Brandon, I met the lady who plays Sasha Banks. I met the guy who plays Ricochet. I met the guy who plays Drew McIntyre. No, you'd be like, I met Sasha Banks. Yeah, I met Ricochet.
Yeah, you're not going to be like, I met Mercedes Vernado. Like,
exactly.
That's a real name. Like, nobody, seriously, nobody like out in WWE will ever refer to her by a real name. Sasha Banks. Drew McIntyre. That's Drew Galloway. But yeah. He's obviously been referred to in other promotions. But it's like Braun Strowman, who's no longer with the company. It's like or Roman Reigns. Like, you don't refer to that. I mean, the only time he ever referred to himself by his real name was when he had a real moment with the leukemia diagnosis. Like these people get involved in their characters. That's really them.
And you don't get recast. They don't go, okay, well, the guy didn't want to play the character anymore, so we're going to get another guy to play that character. We're going to kill off the character, or, we're going to do something like that. So it goes back to the whole thing with WWE hiring comedy writers. It's like, well, of course these wrestlers, these characters, these on-screen personas are not going to have a history because they're not allowed to portray it themselves. And if the writers don't even understand wrestling, much less this person's character, then how are you going to have a coherent character that's going to go on and on and on? What if your favorite TV show, like that had, regular scripted TV show, had writers who knew nothing about the show, and then there was a revolving door of writers, and so this writer that has no idea what this character did in last season and doesn't care, and is just writing for their boss, and that's what WWE is doing,
right? And it's
not going to change until Vince McMahon's gone. That's just the deal.
Exactly. And I'm not trying to get your hopes down or anything, man, but there's so much more that goes into wrestling than just writing. There's psychology and there's stuff that goes on in the ring and just those actual moments that yes, you can stage something and choreograph something, but on a certain level, it's got to feel somewhat authentic. For God's sake, for the one of the most authentic things that I have seen in WWE post WrestleMania was what happened with MVP and Kofi Kingston. The first promo on Raw. It was one of the best things I've seen on Raw, where MVP's talking about, man, I was crying when he won at WrestleMania, and it was this real emotional deal where you could relate to these guys as human beings.
And when MVP called Kofi Kingston, say you guys are doing a shuck and jive, that is very charged language. That is very serious stuff. That and that felt real. Kofi's reaction when he's watch your mouth, that to me felt real, because that is criticism that New Day gets for real. Mostly from woke white people, but they say, hey, you guys are doing a shuck and jive. Dave Meltzer infamously said that he thinks that New Day was doing a minstrel show. So these guys are very aware of this criticism, and they're also self-aware in terms of realizing that it's, portraying yourself as a racial minority on TV. It's delicate. Yes. So the point is, when MVP said, all these things, I know MVP believed that. I know MVP really believed and really did. I believe that he really did cry when Kofi won. Kofi Mania.
Well, there was video of him and Chad Gaspard on social media after them watching the pinfall of him beating Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania 35. And rest in peace, Chad Gaspard, because that was a tragic loss last year. But to reference that, because a lot of people were aware of that and talking about, oh, you're the reason why I came back to WWE. Because remember, MVP was not in WWE for 10 years. He left WWE 10 years ago, comes back at the Royal Rumble a year ago. And it's just that's the type of stuff that you want to see more of in pro wrestling, because those are the segments that are missing. Because then when you go to the comedy bits and all this other stuff, it's like we're watching a television show, and it's on a certain level. Yes, WWE is a television show. It's a 3-hour show, but you're also watching it because it's hey, it's a performance, but also you want some authenticity in this. You don't want this just to be a live action cartoon, really.
Right. I mean, listen, it's WWE is not Lucha Underground. Lucha Underground really leaned hard into the TV show aspect of it, but they just went for it. They didn't try to pretend that they weren't. I mean, it was pretty much, it was on the level, hey, we're doing real, it was like a novella. It was like a telenovela. That's what it was. And that's the way it was filmed. And that was kind of the tone of it. And that's fine. I think Vince McMahon wants to be a movie maker. He wants to be a multimedia entertainment guy. He doesn't want to face the fact that deep down in his heart, he's a wrestling promoter. There's always that thing. No, we're not a Southern wrestling company. We're from New York. We're New England. We are sophisticated. We have our wrestling events at Trump Plaza. We have celebrities. No. You're a wrestling carny, and there's nothing wrong with that, Vince McMahon.
I mean, you can be entertaining. You can absolutely be entertaining. And some of the things about WrestleMania is it's entertainment. And we talk about it all the time, sports entertainment. But I feel like sometimes we're leaning too much more into the entertainment side of things, specifically on the main roster. You can tell on NXT, they're more focused on the wrestling. And that's what I really like about NXT. Every Tuesday night, you're going in and you're seeing these great banger type matches that are just, these guys go out there and just put their bodies on the line and basically kill each other in the ring. And like a lot of times you're not seeing that type of stuff on the main roster. It's more about promos. It's more about being entertaining, joking around and that type of stuff. And that's fine. You can have that, but you don't need to lean into that all the time. And like going back to where we started this whole thing with Kenice Mobley, this comedy writer, it's like it leans into that narrative that like WWE is trying so hard to like go mainstream, and they're forgetting their roots of what made them so great, which was pro wrestling. And us as fans, that's what we want to see. I mean, yeah, you can go mainstream and you could have a couple major movie stars come out of it, but at the same time, it's like, be what you are. Don't pretend to be something that you're not. And I think that's the problem that WWE has had. And this has been going, this is not new. That's the other thing. This is not new. So hopefully there's some hope that maybe sometime they can sort of lean in, and maybe with fans coming back, it could maybe put a jolt into this company, because I feel like they've been kind of dragging their feet for the last 16 months.
Now, someone, Mike, who never drags his feet, and someone who is an entertainer, someone who is one of those two movie stars that you brought up in terms of WWE creating them, is John Cena. And John Cena was on The Tonight Show last night with Jimmy Fallon. And Jimmy asked John Cena about the rumors that John Cena will be returning soon.
Those rumors are true. I'll definitely be back to the WWE. I don't know when.
Okay, but so this got fans freaking out. Okay.
Yeah, so I posted that back in May. I was feeling rather nostalgic about the WWE, and I just wanted to post the logo. And some people took it as I was returning immediately, which that's not the case. But I haven't had my last match, and I can't wait to have my next one.
He's a tease. He likes to tease. Now, we have to say, I want to remind everybody, sometimes Cena teases just to tease. I remember a few years ago, I think it was the Royal Rumble that was out here in San Antonio. Might have been 2015, 2016.
I think it was 17. That was 17, I think.
He teased, he put an Omega symbol on his Instagram, hinting that Kenny Omega was going to be in the Royal Rumble. He likes to
that I remember that. That was right. That was, I don't know which Okada match that was after.
Yeah.
But it was, I don't know if it was one or two. But I remember that, and I remember people were absolutely just losing their minds.
And I'm such a mark that when I showed up to the Alamo Dome, part of me was actually thinking that there's a chance that Kenny Omega could come out.
The pop that would have come out of that would have been insane. But
I know. So sometimes Cena, he likes to be he likes to tease us, and he does say later in the show that, hey, I'm doing so many movies, and because of insurance, like, you can't do a movie and then go do a wrestling match on the weekend and come back. The movie studio does not like that at all. So we'd have to find a time where we're pretty sure he wasn't doing a movie. And maybe they could do it like The Rock did a few years ago in Dallas, where they called it a match, but it was really The Rock just basically doing the rock bottom and people's elbow, and that was it. And that's, maybe
he basically it was a 6-second match with Rowan, and they just he just was instantly in his clothes. I mean, the rumors that I've been hearing, I mean, Andrew Zarian from Matt Men podcast does a great job. He's been on this. I've heard like a lot of the insiders have been really all over this, really, as they're trying to build like the biggest card possible for SummerSlam in Vegas. I haven't even talked to you guys since that. Like, that's huge news. Also, the fact that they're doing it the night of the Manny Pacquiao fight, which is crazy. Like, doing that in the same city, the same night, and on Saturday in the stadium. So it's going to be crazy. So they have to do something big. For me, if Cena is going to come back, and I've heard reports that they want to do Cena Roman Reigns. And I feel like they didn't really, like, they did it well in the short amount of time that they had to build to No Mercy back in 2017. But Roman wasn't as good as he is now. Cena is this humongous star. Like he's a humongous deal. Like he's an F9, Fast and the Furious franchise. For those who are non-fans, it's a huge deal. And I'm not the biggest fan, but I know how I'm into movies, and I know how big of a deal that franchise
like 80
is.
movies.
Yeah, they've made that. Yeah, this is the 9th one that they've made. So it's great, and it spans 20 years. So it's like the modern day Star Wars, I guess you could say, just
or like
because
James
of
Bond.
James
that
Bond, like they
longevity.
never stop making movies. So to me, Cena's not done, but he doesn't really have much more to prove. So to me, I think the match that you got to make, and it seems like they're going to do it, is John Cena and Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship main event, career versus title. Because to me, like, look, what else does John Cena have to do? What else does he have to do in WWE? He's a 16-time world champion. He's so busy. Like, he's basically taken the Rock path. He like, we were complaining that he was around too much. He hasn't been in WWE in a ring since the Firefly Funhouse match last WrestleMania. Like, he has not been around at all. No appearances. And I know, yeah, no fans, that's part of it, but still, he has not been around. So there's nothing left for him to prove. This is about the biggest match possible that you could make in that spot. So if you add that stipulation, that may just go straight up. But to me, if you have Roman Reigns retire John Cena, whoo! I mean, we're already talking about one of the great title reigns of the modern era. If they do that at SummerSlam and that's the closing sequence, oh my God! Like, I've spoken to you, Dan, and Brandon too, about how in high regard I love everything that they're doing with Roman, and we're almost a year into this thing, and it's never dull. And with WWE, that's really hard to do. You can get bored easily. Like the Drew Lashley stuff was boring me. Like I mean the Cell match was fine, but it was like you did it to death. Everything with Roman just consistently feels fresh. So if you pull this off and you can get John Cena to come through and be in the main event of SummerSlam this year, I honestly put that stipulation there, and I think it's a great piece of business that they could do at SummerSlam there.
Do you think there's enough time to lead up to it, though? Or maybe I'm just being old school.
Well,
saying,
I mean,
the
report is that, I mean, they're trying to really hammer home that I think it's the 16th, which is the first live show in front of fans, the SmackDown. It's in Houston, right? I think it's in Houston on the 16th.
Okay.
So right before Money in the Bank, that's when they've been heavily promoting that. So that SmackDown's going to be huge. You're going to have a bunch of fans there, and you're going to want to stack it up with like people like Edge and maybe Sasha Banks, who hasn't been seen since WrestleMania is back. So maybe Cena's on that show and they set up that angle there. I mean, maybe they do that, or maybe they go, maybe after Money in the Bank, they do something when they actually have fans. I think a month is enough time to set this thing up. I mean, they made it good enough in 2017, 4 years ago. And those, if you remember those segments, like Cena was just crushing Roman. Like Roman had no chance. Like Roman
it's called a promo kid. You have to learn how to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's I'm still here because you can't do your job. Like that was one of the more powerful lines of that whole initial sequence where they set up the match. I remember Kurt Angle standing in the background just making a face like, "Oh crap, boy, you're in trouble." So, but yeah, with the way Roman's just been just tapping into this tribal chief thing, like, and being this mega heel, it creates a new dynamic. So, and just saying, hey, you could set this up so easily. And I just think it's going to sell, like, especially with Cena being the biggest star that he is. And everybody, even though he's a heel, everybody loves what Roman's doing. Like it's been so heralded around the pro wrestling industry that like, he just can't miss right now. So that's what I would do. I don't know what you would do, but if Cena's coming back, that's where I go with it.
Well, something I'm not sure if it was a hit or a miss was last Sunday's Hell in a Cell. And, well, I guess we kind of had 4 Hell in a Cell days. Let's see. Well, we had Hell in a Cell on
what was that?
We had Hell in a Cell on SmackDown on Friday. Then we had the
with
Hell
one
in a
day
Cell.
with 1 day notice.
Yeah, because apparently wrestlers can just say, "I want my match a day early," and they go.
Well, my theory here's what happened. So Fox, I think, was like, "Oh crap, we're gonna get killed in the ratings tonight or on Friday," because NBA playoffs, you got NHL playoffs, like sports. Like, I know you're not a big sports guy. Like, that's just going to take attention away from us.
Despite having this banner behind me.
Yeah, exactly. Banner. Yeah. I mean, Fox, like, it's different with them because like they're a sports enterprise and like obviously they're paying a ton of money to invest in SmackDown. So I think the Fox executives ran up to Vince McMahon. He didn't even think about it. Which, I mean, if you would have thought about it, it would have been brilliant. But like, that's why this happened. Is like the Fox executives basically said, "Hey, Vince, we got to have Roman Reigns on SmackDown. We got to have the."
Do you think they suggested or they told him?
I honestly think it might have been a tell because it's like, hey man, we're paying you billions of dollars, millions and billions of dollars to have a show for us. We need this match. Mm-hmm. And Vince probably didn't want to do it, but he was probably told, hey, you guys are the ones. Hey, you guys are the ones paying me. Yeah, so whatever. I mean, Vince isn't going to submit easily. Like I said, he's a stubborn man, but
he only submits to Saudi princes.
Yes, exactly, because they're going to pay him all his paychecks, and they're going to go back there later in the year. But that's separate.
Or whatever. Yeah.
But so then, like, they moved Bianca and Bayley into the cell on Sunday, which is great. It was a great match, and I think what happened is NBC Universal, which is USA, they have the rights to Raw. They were like, the hell. They're getting Fox is getting a Hell in a Cell match on free TV, and we don't get one.
Right.
So I had a bigger problem with that because, I mean, great for Xavier Woods to get some exposure, but like that was no notice at all. Just announce it on television, just for the hell of it. Okay, yeah, we're gonna have it inside Hell in a Cell. What?
Okay, but I think Hell in a Cell is being overused. I enjoy the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view.
Great stipulations of all time.
Stipulation, right? What it used to be is when a rivalry gets so heated and so intense, and nobody gets the upper hand on the other wrestler. So it's like,
it's the ultimate blow-off match.
This match has gone this rivalry's gone so violent, so intense. We need to solve this once and for all. We're going to do the nuclear option. We shouldn't do this all the time, but we have to. It's going to be Hell in a Cell, and you guys are going to settle this because you guys are going to have to basically kill each other to solve this issue between you guys. Not just this yearly pay-per-view where a couple days before Bianca Belair and Bayley, okay, we're going to be in Hell in a Cell.
Let's do it in Hell in a Cell.
Yeah, well. I mean, if the cell's going to be there anyway, I mean, that's not really compelling. Going like, well, if there's going to be a cell there, I might as well just drop it and do it for our match, right? I mean,
exactly.
I mean, their rivalry was not that intense. It was not so intense that it
was built on a laugh.
Ended. Right.
It was built on a laugh.
Right. Well, you're making fun of me. You're laughing at me, so we're going to go in Hell in a Cell. I thought it's a little bit
actually, Drew, I kind of get why they would put that in the cell because like they had a long drawn out feud. I mean, maybe it wasn't the intensity level that we would like, and it was kind of done to death, and people were kind of tight. And I love Drew, and I know you guys had him on last week. They it's just him being around the title feud. They're basically doing the same thing that they did with Roman Reigns. So, and it's just like people want to see him away from the belt for at least a little bit because we all like him and he's great. But when you put a guy in that spot so many times, it's just like it's difficult. But it leads into this problem that I have with, and this is like future pay-per-views, like they do Extreme Rules and these themed pay-per-views. And what I've noticed, and I didn't really realize this until I started watching AEW, where they have these quarterly shows and then they do like these kind of pay-per-view level type shows, like they're going to do on Saturday, where they have these special Dynamite things, or they have Winter is Coming, or like they come up with these specialty name shows like Fight
like
for
next
the
month
Fallen.
when AEW comes here, it's gonna be Fighter Fest.
Fighter Fest or Fight for the Fallen. Like I like that concept where you're not overdoing it, because I think the biggest problem that WWE has had, and I really never thought about this, is like, okay, you're having a pay-per-view every single month. I understand that it's the network and it's not like the same thing anymore. Like where basically you're spending $5 for Peacock now.
Yeah.
So, the problem is like, I think you're being forced into seeing all these rematches. Like for God's sake, we what do we see? 2 rematches, I think, at Hell in a Cell. There were seen at WrestleMania. Like we had Seth and Cesaro, and then we had Lashley and Drew. I'm maybe I'm missing something, but like it's just like that's a problem with the show. And I think with the stipulation type stuff, Hell in a Cell, like I remember like in the early stages of WWE, it's like that was an event. Like you remember the like Mick Foley getting thrown off the cell and all this. Now we're just doing it every single year. And sometimes these matches are just being thrown in there. Oh, because we have to have a Hell in a Cell match because that's the name of the pay-per-view.
Didn't they legit like announce 3 of the matches on SmackDown 2 days before? Like, I mean, it was just the card was nowhere near, and I knew on Thursday before that they were kind of screwed because we knew I knew the Cesaro and Seth hadn't been announced, so that was one. I'm forgetting what the other one. I mean, because obviously with losing Reigns on pay-per-view was a big deal. So then you knew Lashley and Drew was going to be there. I really don't even want to get into the Rhea and Charlotte stuff because that whole feud is just pissing me off. Like, WWE doesn't realize whoever directs for WWE, the Thunderdome, still thinks that Rhea Ripley is a heel because they instruct the fans to boo her.
Yeah, what is Rhea Ripley? And her promo, it is so hard. Like I feared this from the minute it happened because we've had this whole problem with NXT call-ups. Don't ruin Rhea Ripley. And for God's sake, they have done their damnedest to make us hate her. Like, because even like they tried to turn her heel before. Everybody loves Rhea Ripley. She's 24 years old. She is freaking awesome. And they have made her look like the most vanilla, like just plain straight heel. And it's confusing every week. Like she's saying, "Oh, I respect you, Nikki Cross." Oh, and then messing with Charlotte
on
Nash.
TV.
Yeah, she's friendly.
But now they have her getting intentionally disqualified.
What was that? I've never seen a tape. I've never seen an announced table cause a disqualification in all my years of watching professional wrestling. I can see how
if she got disqualified and then she said, "Oh my God, I lost my temper, but I want to do it again. I'll give her another chance."
But then they did it on Raw, and they basically
bragged about it. She's like, "Yeah, I did it."
She bragged about it, and then then Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville bring her out saying, "How dare you?" I was like, and for once, Rhea actually made a good point in her promo. It's like, yeah, Charlotte would have done the same thing. So I was like, what is Rhea Ripley on the main roster? Like, it's just, I know I'm going all over the place. This show is just, I mean, the matches itself were fine, but the finish to Rhea Charlotte pissed me off. It just made no sense. And I was like, okay, they're just clearly, and it was made evidently clear, hey, we're just gonna have another match in Money in the Bank. Okay. And then the Lashley Drew match made the Hell in a Cell stipulation look completely idiotic because MVP just gets in the cell and then Lashley wins on a roll up. Are you kidding me? What? Like it's a Hell in a Cell match, and you got Lashley.
I'm a professional here.
Oh, professional. We got this is live, man. But you got Lashley.
We're live, pal.
Yeah, we live. So you got Lashley, who's built up as this mega badass, and I feel like they've kind of taken a step back on him with the Lashley's ladies and like all. It's like what made Lashley like so intriguing for like his entire run, like with the Hurt Business. Like he was just a killer,
and he doesn't have to worry about other crap.
Yeah, he doesn't have to worry about.
He doesn't need MVP. His semi-retired manager to intervene for him.
I think he has a mouthpiece. I like MVP, and I like what he's been doing to like stir the pot, like we talked about with Kofi. But he doesn't need to get involved in his matches. Yeah. He doesn't need to.
Heyman doesn't come in and beat up people for Roman Reigns because he doesn't need to.
Right, exactly. Yeah, Paul Heyman doesn't. Yeah, that's a great comparison. Like Paul Heyman just stands there and he basically. I mean, he doesn't even really talk anymore. Like what Roman's become is everything that WWE wanted Brock Lesnar to be. Like Brock Lesnar doesn't talk. Like Roman, he could cut
bounces.
a promo. I mean, he cuts a promo, and like Paul Heyman just sort of stands there in the background, and so does Jey Uso.
Nods.
But like. Some of the finishes on this show just kind of drove me crazy because the match, like the cell match itself was awesome. Like they beat the crap out of each other. Like you saw Drew's back. Holy crap.
Yeah, he got those welts on there.
Oh my God. And he sold it really well on Monday Night Raw too. Like he did some really good selling in the match against.
You mean when the guy who was in the WWE Championship match last night lost to Riddle?
Yeah.
Monday Night Raw.
Yeah. Although, like, yeah, I mean, it's
No offense to Riddle, but come on.
no offense to Riddle. Although I will say this, another thing, one thing Raw has nailed is Arcade Bro. That's I mean, seriously, like, I mean, I wish they would kind of stop making Riddle so dang obnoxious. Like, I wish they would be like like broser. I wish he would be broserweight Matt Riddle. Because if you remember, like, and that was before the pandemic, they were tag team champions, and it just got cut short. That was fantastic
with Pete Dunne, right?
With Pete Dunne, that was great. I mean, and I think it could be that with Randy Orton. I really do, and I think they're going to get a tag team title shot at SummerSlam. I think that's where this is going. They're going to face AJ and Omos, and if they win the titles, that's going to be one of the biggest pops in Allegiant Stadium in Vegas. But yeah, it's just like back to Hell in a Cell. I mean, it was fine. I'm glad that we're getting the end of the Thunderdome. I'm glad we're going back on the road because hopefully that's just going to put a jolt back into some of these shows. Because basically, some of the reporting that I've read is like Vince is kind of just sort of holding back because there's not fans. There's like, in the end, you're still trying to, it's still a television product and you want people to watch, right? You want people to tune in. So, I mean, that is in. I'm hoping that this Kenice Mobley or whatever this thing is, it's like, hopefully it's a non-issue. Maybe Raw can actually start producing. It's me being wishful and me being optimistic like you, that hopefully that this creates stuff. But it's like, it was fine. Hell in a Cell. But like I said, specifically the last two matches, the women's championship match and then Lashley Drew, the finishes itself. And that's what really defines the match is the finish. That's what really messed with me and kind of pissed me off a little bit.
So that's how Hell in a Cell ended last night by Bobby Lashley retaining the championship. I feel bad for Drew, but I think this is the right move for WWE because they need to continue to establish Bobby Lashley as this monster. Like that's the kind of heel you want. That's the kind of heel that kind of scares kids a little bit. Like the kind of heel, like once the crowds come back, little kids go, maybe this guy will punch me if I yell at him too much, if I boo him too hard. So I think
Lashley's kind of cool. Lashley's kind of cool. Like, I mean, I initially, like when he was in WWE years ago, it's like he was kind of just a bland, like plain ordinary guy. But I got a chance to watch with the headband, and I got a chance to watch him in Impact, and he did a really good job there, and he really developed his character, and he was able to talk. And then they brought him back to WWE, and for like 3 years, it's like they couldn't figure out what the hell to do with him. Then they put him with MVP, and look what the hell happened. Like, seriously, that's really what changed his career. Because like a lot of stuff was ridiculous, and the minute that he aligned with MVP, it just this engine started like churning, and he's been able to put on great matches. For God's sake, the guy's 45, and he is still in phenomenal condition. And that was the longest match of the night at like 25 minutes. Like the endurance of him and just what he's been able to accomplish. Like I wish that they hadn't tweaked the Hurt business and they hadn't gotten rid of this edge where he's just like this killer in the ring and this intense guy. And now they're turning him into like this big softy who's surrounded by like 6 scantily dressed women. Like it's basically like The Godfather almost. It's like they're trying to enter like an element of The Godfather with him, but it's like, look, it was the right move. I love Drew. I loved him being champion. I honestly felt that he deserved a moment to get the title back. But once we got past that point, I was like, he can't hold the title again because then people are going to turn on him and they're just not going to like him. And it's going to turn into a second-rate Roman Reigns thing. And nobody wants that because Drew, you talk to him, that guy is as real and as authentic a WWE superstar. You want to root for that guy. You really do.
So for me, Hell in a Cell, it was okay. Not a bad way to spend a Sunday night. I don't see myself really going back and watching it later another time. There wasn't really
I don't know if I'm going to watch very much of the pandemic era of WWE. Like,
I might. You know what? This may surprise you. I may go back and watch last year's Money in the Bank, the Tower Heist version, because I liked it, even though a lot of people hated it. And that will be the next.
Otis winning is one of the most pointless booking.
We will get into that because we will get into that real quick before we head out because the next pay-per-view for WWE is July 18th at the Dickies Arena in Fort Worth. I like that. Dickies makes me giggle. July 18th, Money in the Bank next year. And Bianca Belair is on the main poster here, so somebody behind the scenes really likes her. She'll probably keep the championship for a long time, I'm guessing.
She's
Let's
an
talk
awesome
about the
champion.
problems with Money in the Bank. As you mentioned, last year in the men's Money in the Bank, Otis won. Now I'm trying to remember. Can you remind me, Mike, when Otis cashed in Money in the Bank? Oh wait, he didn't get the cash in Money in the Bank.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's right.
Because
yeah,
he lost it somehow to the Miz. Like you can lose your Money in the Bank.
He lost because of his
briefcase?
tag team partner in one of the most over tag teams. And by the way, his former tag team partner is no longer there, and now he's a heel in a different tag team. Granted, he is with a great performer in Chad Gable, and I think they're actually really good together. But think about the timeline of that. Like Otis was the Mandy Rose thing. Think about what that would have been like in front of a crowd. All of that. He gets
Think
Money
about what it
in
was
the
like
bank.
for Otis.
Yeah,
your Money in the
exactly.
Bank, and your job is okay. You need to go film a scene at a pool with Mandy Rose and I don't know, make out with her in the pool.
And then they just randomly moved Mandy Rose to Raw and just forgot about the whole thing. And then he just loses to The Miz because of Tucker. And then a couple months later, he's a heel in a tag team, and now he shaved his beard. Like it's what the hell happened there?
Okay,
Like
I can imagine maybe WWE felt they made a mistake with Otis. They said, okay, we don't.
It was
see
a
him
shock.
as-
It was a shock move. Like it was. I don't know if it was necessarily a mistake. I think it was a shock move for the sake of a shock move. It was a swerve for the sake of a swerve.
But
The
if they were
WWE
never
did-
going to give him the title, then just have him cash in Money in the Bank on someone and be unsuccessful. And lose.
I'm just
It's happened
weirded out
before.
why they would have him win it, and then Braun Strowman's your champion, then the Fiend's the champion, and then Roman Reigns is the champion. It's like, do we really think he's a realistic guy who's going to cash in on one of those guys?
Well, people
and
have
win?
won. I know definitely at least one person. Corbin won Money in the Bank, tried to cash in and lost, which is fine because
a lot of that was a lot of that was backstage stuff.
okay, but at least it made sense in storyline.
And
at least it made sense.
It was actually pretty well executed, by the way. Like the way they executed the failed cash in. Like I remember watching that on TV. I was like, "There's nothing like a good like cash in. Like that'll always pop a crowd." Where like, oh my
and
god,
the thing is too, like you gotta have a few failed cash-ins every now and then so that people don't think it's just a foregone conclusion.
yeah,
that they're gonna
like the
win.
Royal Rumble. It's like the Royal Rumble. It's like, oh, the Royal Rumble. It's guaranteed that person's going to go on to WrestleMania and win the title. Like you gotta
Right,
have
it shouldn't be like
some
that.
different. You gotta have some like you gotta make it at least a little bit original. And like they broke, like Cena was the one who broke the ice on that. Then I think Damian Sandow didn't have one, and I'm sure there's another one. It's Corbin, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Money in the Bank is honestly, I mean, Hell in a Cell used to be really cool. I love the Money in the Bank stipulation. I love it. I think it creates a lot of excitement, especially with who's carrying around the briefcase, because it puts the champions on edge. I mean, one of the greatest moments, maybe in the history, one of the great moments in the history of WrestleMania is Seth Rollins running down that ramp at WrestleMania 31, and getting involved in that and making it a triple threat.
The heist of the century.
The heist of the century, exactly. Like it just adds a different element to storytelling, and it just creates a different element to things. I mean, I wish they wouldn't do it to death. Like, I mean, honestly, but hey, they have one. They now have one Money in the Bank match. They used to have two for the men, one for each show, which kind of was a little bit of a waste. Now they have one for the men, one for the women, which is fine. But yeah, I mean, thinking back to last year, man, like that was a fun thing. They did a really good job with staging that and filming it and just editing it and like making it a movie, which was perfect for what it was in the pandemic. But I mean, Otis winning Money in the Bank, and you're just like, okay, cool. And then they didn't do anything with him.
But now it's tainted. I have a bad taste in my mouth. I usually don't like to talk about the word taint and mouth at the same time.
Yeah. That's a little bit weird.
Different circumstances, but it's like, okay, but this year Money in the Bank, it's like, okay, whoever wins is like, okay, are they going to find some way to just change their mind backstage and decide to find some stupid way to,
There's a lot of good scenarios that have been thrown around on the internet about like who could win, who makes sense to win. I mean, this year is really up in the air because it's just like, hey, it's the first one in front of fans. It's like, who are they really going to want to go with? I mean, some people have thrown out Seth, which would be interesting. And having Roman Reigns try to manipulate him. and potentially saying, hey, yeah, you know what? Hey, don't cash in on me. Go to Raw. And then maybe it leads to something there. It's just like, they're this year, because most of the time we kind of know in our minds who the Royal Rumble and the Money in the Bank match winners are. This year, like with all the uncertainty, like and us coming back to live arenas, I have no idea. And I know it's a month away, but I can't wait because, like I said, just it's the perfect pay-per-view to start like the rebirth and the re-entering into society of WWE. It really
what
is.
If Drew McIntyre wins, he cashes in on Bobby Lashley.
Even though there was a stipulation in that match that
Drew McIntyre wins, but then Bobby Lashley says, "Hey, you weren't supposed to do this, remember?" And then they have to fight. And then maybe they have two championships. It's like kind of like when CM Punk took his championship, and then John Cena had the championship, and then they had to fight.
One of the great Money in the Bank matches of all time, by the way. That's one of the great Money in the that's one of the great WWE matches, probably like the last 10, 15 years. CM Punk, John Cena, Money in the Bank 2011.
Real quick before we go, AEW has not been on the regular time slot last couple weeks. It's probably hurt them in the ratings.
Yeah,
I've been watching. I think this weekend they're going to be on Saturday. I think they're back on Wednesday.
Saturday. I think 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern. So I think 7 for you guys out there in the Central Time Zone.
Definitely. So AEW is doing some good stuff. Just kind of chugging along. They're going back on the road too. I think they're starting.
Yeah, they're
July
going. Yeah,
as
they
well.
they got one more Wednesday show, and then they're back on the road July 7th. So that's great. And I'm looking forward to this Jungle Boy Kenny Omega. I don't think Jungle Boy's going to win, but that kid is freaking incredible. He's 24. What is he? I think he just turned 24.
Yeah,
he is so fun to watch, and he has got maybe the best theme music in all of pro wrestling. Tarzan Boy, like that. Like the crowd was going nuts at Double or Nothing. Like it's so great. But yeah, I can't see Jungle Boy winning here. I think Omega has been such a great champion as a heel. I think it's a great act. I think Hangman Adam Page is ultimately going to be the guy to beat him. I don't know when it's going to happen because there's just history there. But I can't wait to see this match because Tony Khan clearly saw an opportunity here live Saturday night. Basically, it's almost like a de facto pay-per-view, and you're putting one of your best young stars against maybe the best wrestler in the world. So this is going to be awesome, and I can't wait to see it. To your point, yeah, AEW's kind of been hurt by going at 10 Eastern the last couple weeks and following SmackDown. But the quality of their shows hasn't faltered because of it. They're still booking good shows, and it's still an entertaining product. It's just, it's not in its normal time slot. It's weird on Wednesday nights not being able to flick on TNT. And I mean, obviously there's NBA playoff basketball, but that's just the circumstances of where we are with. And when they move to TBS, this isn't going to happen again, and hopefully they don't have to do it again anymore. So.
But every now and then, Monday Night Raw has to be preempted by like the Westminster Dog Show or whatever.
Oh, so yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It happens. Mike Mayer from the Off the Mic Wrestling Podcast. How do we find you online?
Follow me at Off the Mic 28. You can also follow my podcast. We had an official Twitter handle at OT Mike Wrestling. Been kind of taking a little bit of a break, but obviously I love doing these with you guys, and I got to return the favor and invite you guys over to my show.
Yeah, bring us to California.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I mean virtually. Texas. I don't want to go to Southern California in person.
Yeah, I mean,
my lungs can't take it.
I mean, you guys are dealing with heat out there. We deal with heat out here this time of year, so I mean, it's almost kind of the same. But
you got Botox everywhere. It's just it's a whole different scene out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Good times. Mike Mayer, thank you for joining us tonight on Down for the Counts.
Appreciate the invite. Always fun.
That's the bottom line because Down for the Count said so.